Well, to discuss this further, we're joined now by Angie Wong, who's a Republican strategist based in Florida. Great to have you with us. We're also joined by Paul Glastris, former chief speechwriter to President Bill Clinton, also editor-in-chief of the Washington Monthly. Great to have you both with us. I mean, a lot to digest. It's been a busy 24 hours in U.S. politics. Let me start with you, Paul. I mean, Zohran Mamdani's win described as having electrified the left. Do you think Mandani is now the face or the soul of the Democratic Party, a party that, for the last few months at any rate, has been slightly in the wilderness?
Well, it was a big win for him. He's an extraordinarily gifted politician and speaker. It's certainly a big deal. It isn't the only race. It wasn't even the biggest race. Democrats won across the board, most of them not associated with the socialist side of the ticket, mostly centrists, a lot of women, and so it certainly will be seized on by some as, because it is kind of the most interesting race, but I think you could read too much into that part of it.
Okay, I mean, internationally, it certainly captured the imaginations of a lot of people. Because Angie, I mean, a self-described socialist has just become New York's youngest mayor since the year 1892, the city's first Muslim mayor, the first African-born mayor. I mean, what sort of a message does all of that send about New York?
And it's pretty clear. I mean, during his victory speech, he was very proud to say, I am a socialist, and this is the socialist moment. And that is what we saw yesterday. Democrats and socialists, they got the moment. That was their big win yesterday. Whether or not they can push the rest of the party farther and further to the left, that has still remained to be seen because, yes, Zoran Mamdani won yesterday, but we also had Abigail Spanberger and we also had Mickey Sherrill, who are much more moderate to the party. So there's going to be some internal fighting there to see who actually controls the Democrat Party. But Zoran Mamdani is certainly the rock star. He's a 34-year-old who has very, if not any, city management experience. I mean, you have to remember what this job is. To be the New York City mayor, you're in charge of garbage and snow removal and all those things. It's an actual job. So, it's one thing to come in with no experience and to play out this kind of progressive theory in a real city, but another thing to really manage over, 100,000 city workers. So we're going to see if it's going to work or if that's going to blow up in the left's face, and then Republicans will gladly come in and clean up New York City like we did with Rudy Giuliani back in the 90s.
Okay, Paul, what do you have to say to that? And do you think there is an element of, now the glitz and the excitement of the campaign is over, the election's over, now it's down to hard work. Will he be able to deliver?
I have no idea. I mean, Angie put it right. You have, moderates winning in other mostly blue states. You have another Muslim candidate who's a moderate winning in Virginia, and you had another Muslim socialist African-born or heritage candidate in Minnesota, in Minneapolis, who lost to a mainstream Democrat. So there's a lot of mixed signals here, and I think you could read too much into it. But it's certainly the case that Mamdani has, as Angie said, a big job ahead of him and a lot of youth. He's not an experienced manager of cities, so we'll have to see.
Okay, Angie, I mean, what are we hearing from President Trump? I mean, there's clearly going to be a bit of a post-mortem in the ranks of the GOP. What are we hearing so far?
So President Trump just held a breakfast for Republican senators just minutes ago, and he was asked that very question. This is going to be a reaction to yesterday's election, where largely Democrats have won across the board. And it seems though the one theme that's emerging is that Democrats won because of one word: affordability. Our gases, our insurance, our grocery prices are way, way too high. And the Mandani win and other wins, that is a reaction to just not being able to afford to live in cities in America. So instead of responding directly to Democrats winning, President Trump wants now to lift the filibuster in the Senate so that we can reopen the government. One of the reasons why we can't bring costs down here in the US is because the big beautiful bill has not been able to be implemented yet. Everything is stalled in Congress at this very time. So President Trump even said during the breakfast just a few minutes ago that he would love for tonight for the government to reopen. So I think that is going to be something that John Thune, our Senate Majority Leader, has to really pay close attention to, because enough is enough. We're at day 36, the longest government shutdown in history. It is time to reopen the government. We need to get things moving again in order for President Trump to get his agenda across. This is his big agenda moment. And if we're going to keep losing seats, well, you know, we have the midterms in 1 year's time, and he wants to make sure that we bring affordability back to Americans so that Democrats do not own that message.
Right. Paul, what do you make of that? I mean, affordability is something we've heard a lot about from New Yorkers who say, you know, the cost of living is out of control in that city, and Mamdani is promising to tackle it. I mean, this is the first major electoral test since President Trump returned to power in earlier on this year. I mean, what does this all tell us about the mood of the country right now?
Look, Donald Trump won on affordability. Joe Biden and ultimately Kamala Harris lost because 60, 70% of Americans can barely keep up with the cost of living. Wages have been, you know, sparse for many decades. Prices have gone up. He promised to turn things around. Things have, if anything, gotten a little worse. Democrats absolutely exploited that sense that people have. But let me just point out, there was no real surprise in any of these races, in the sense that, you know, all the polls were mostly saying these candidates would win. What is a surprise is the margins. The margins are way higher for the winners. People were saying Mikey Sherrill, the helicopter pilot, mother of four, ex-prosecutor who won in New Jersey, polls were saying she'll win by 3 to 7 points. She won by 13 points. Abigail Spanberger, the ex-CIA analyst, congresswoman, now governor-elect of Virginia, won a higher percentage of the vote than any governor in decades. These are exceptional, and in Georgia, Republicans lost. In Pennsylvania, Republicans lost. Small offices, but it's telling. This is a real rebuke to the Trump administration, the president. And again, not surprising, the president's poll numbers have just cratered really all ever since April, but increasingly in the last few weeks. And the shutdown, if you look at the polls, voters are blaming the president and Republicans more than the Democrats. So Angie's, you know, right that Trump would like to end the shutdown because it's a fight that he's not winning. And these election results really underscore that.
Okay, Angie, I don't know what you have to say to that. And also, I mean, I noticed on your Twitter feed, Angie, or X as it's called now, you weren't thrilled, were you, by the choice of candidate for New York mayor from the Republican Party? You think perhaps, well, I got the impression that you seem to think they picked the wrong person.
No, absolutely. And I was working on Curtis Lewa's campaign back in 2021. So I knew that his numbers were never going to be even close to what we got there. He was almost at, I believe, 28, 29% in 2021. And for him to fall back into the lower teens yesterday, I mean, it was just embarrassing. So we knew we had the wrong candidate. I blame the GOP on this. Look, I'm part of the party. I wish we put in more work. Where was the campaigning in New York City? You know, we're journalists here. We want to help out the candidates as well, but they're just not giving us anything. So that was a problem. New York City just needs to have a better game plan, a master plan to win back some of the seats that they have lost this round. And I think they're going to try to do that in 2026 with a governor's race. This whole scenario is perfectly set up for a Republican win during the governor's race in New York State, but with the right candidate and also with the right messaging. Now, I agree with Paul. what we saw yesterday was a referendum on Trump's policies. It is not a one-size-fits-all. It does not work on all Americans. And clearly, American voters are now telling him that. And I think the Trump administration should take a pause and say, okay, what did we learn from yesterday? Do we pivot on some of our hardline policies now? Because Trump really wants to have a full 4-year presidency. And if he doesn't win in the midterms in 2026, he's going to have a 2-year real full-term presidency and then have to fight the rest, right? So if the House goes back, let's say, to the Democrats, or if the Senate goes towards the Democrats, it's going to be a much harder fight. So right now, if I'm the Trump administration, I am taking a step back. I am looking at the numbers. Last night, Zohran Mamdani won mostly the female Gen Z vote at 84%. And he also won a lot of Black and Latino votes. So that was surprising to see. As we do the autopsy of last night's election, we're going to try to work on our messaging, try to work on affordability, and try to win back some of these voters.
Paul, let me turn back to you, because there have been some who've argued that, and sorry to keep talking about Mamdani, I know there were other races, but we are particularly focused on New York from an international point of view. Some argue that a sort of more radical candidate like Mamdani was actually a gift to President Trump, because he's going to try to paint all Democrats as being extreme based on what Mamdani's beliefs are. And he didn't shy off, did he, President Trump, attaching labels to him, calling him a communist, calling him a Jew hater. I mean, do you think they've got a point, these commentators who say that, in a way, Mamdani is something of a gift to Donald Trump?
I think that they see it that way, and they're probably right that they can get some mileage out of it. And this is why you saw Democratic leaders in the House and Senate being very, very risk averse and not embracing him, because they're looking at their other members. They know that those attacks can work. And even if it doesn't describe the vast majority of Democrats, it can hurt other Democrats. So I think, yes, it may not be, quite a fair thing, but, Donald Trump will use it, and Republicans will use it. We'll see how successful they are.
And Paul, what did you make of those labels that were attached to Mamdani? A little communist, a Jew hater. I mean, what does that tell us about the current climate in America?
It's par for the course out of Republicans' mouths. This is how the party now talks. He's not a communist. He's not a Jew hater. A lot of Jews voted for him, not the majority. But this is now how they talk, and we'll see if it has any. It's certainly his profile in this cycle. He was in the front pages of every paper all over the country for weeks and weeks and weeks. Didn't seem to hurt the Democrats who were running, for instance, in New Jersey, right across the river. So whether his win can tar the trajectory of the rest of the Democratic Party, I honestly doubt it, but it remains to be seen.
And Angie,
May I jump in here?
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think that labeling Zoran Mamdani as a socialist, as a radical, I even heard the word terrorist, none of that worked. It clearly did not work in the polls last night. And these kind of locker room talks, it doesn't work. It may work in some of the Republican bases, but with Democrats, they actually embraced it. When Zoran Mamdani took the stage yesterday, he embraced being a socialist. And you know what? The crowd cheered louder every time he used that word. So it didn't work. And then we had a poll today come out that a quarter of New Yorkers now identify as Democrat socialists. It is now trending. So it backfired on Trump, labeling socialist and all these words that I think a lot of Americans just don't understand. It's actually backfiring on Republicans. So we need to find a better strategy. We can't just keep calling people names. We actually need to have policies that back what we do versus just, labeling people bad words that, quite honestly, it's actually fueling the left.
Right. So we have these scary labels that are being used with regards to Mamdani, and threats behind them in the form of that threat to pull the plug on federal funding for New York. I mean, Angie, do you think President Trump is serious? Do you think he is going to somehow make life difficult for Mayor Mamdani, or do you think that was just, as you said, locker room talk?
No, it's 100%. I mean, there's going to be a plan. Remember, Trump has a lot of properties and lots of friends with properties in New York. He's going to make sure that, his investments are safe and secure. He also understands we've seen other cities go in this direction, London in particular, and he doesn't want any of that happening to New York City. So we have a preview of what a Mandani mayoralship can look like. So one of the things is pulling federal funds, or at least giving the bare minimum that is required by law to New York City. So Trump can play a lot here if he wanted to. Maybe the smart move would be for Zoran Mamdani to not just go butting heads with President Trump, but actually working with President Trump, like our San Francisco mayor is doing. It's a respect thing. Now, in respects to all the free stuff that Zoran Mamdani wants to give to New Yorkers, you can't do that. You need the state legislature to approve, and then you need the governor to sign off on all these things. I don't know if he can actually deliver on any of his campaign messages. It's great to say, hey, free stuff for everybody, but the reality is you still have several layers of government to get through before you can start making everything free.
Okay, Paul, your final thoughts. I mean, do you see these two men, President Trump and Mamdani, working together, or are they going to find any areas of cooperation, or is this open warfare?
We'll have to see. Open warfare at first. That would be my guess. But look, the president before this election, blocked funding for a commuter tunnel under the Hudson River that New Jersey citizens need to get in and out of downtown Manhattan. And that was very bad for the president's own choice of a candidate in New Jersey, Jack Ciattarelli, who was quite a good candidate. He came within 3 points of winning the governorship last time, and now he lost by 13. So if I'm Mamdani, my attitude might be bring it on, because New Yorkers will rally around being attacked. And at some point, a lot of what Trump has tried to do in this stuff is unconstitutional, and he's only been able to get away with it because we have a very submissive Republican majority Congress that isn't exercising its own responsibility. So it'll probably get worse before it gets better, but I don't think it's going to help the president.
Okay, well, you've had the last word, because I'm being told we're out of time. Thank you very much indeed to you, Paul Glastris, and thanks to you as well, Angie Wong. A pleasure having you both on the program.
Thank you.